You're at dinner. Someone asks why you don't drink. And before you can even think, you're already building a defense. Maybe it's health reasons. Maybe it's just preference. But you're explaining, justifying, performing this little song and dance to make them comfortable with your choice. And then one day something shifts. Someone asks the same question, and you just say, I don't. No explanation, no apology, no performance, just, I don't. And you walk away feeling lighter than you have in years. If you've reached that point, you've unlocked something most people spend their whole lives searching for: freedom. Real freedom. Not the kind you get from money or status or approval. The kind you get when you finally stop needing to explain yourself to people who are never going to understand anyway. And if you're not there yet, this video will show you exactly why you need to be. If this already resonates, subscribe. We explore the psychology of people who've stopped performing and started living. There are 4 types of people who stop explaining themselves, and each one reveals something powerful about emotional maturity. Let's start with the first, the type who learned the hard way that explanations don't change minds. They just give people ammunition. You spent years explaining yourself, why you made that career change, why you ended that relationship, why you moved away, why you don't celebrate certain holidays, and every single time people had something to say, they questioned your judgment, they offered their opinions, they made you feel like you owed them a dissertation on your life choices. So you gave it to them. You explained in detail. You laid out your reasoning. You tried to make them understand. And you know what happened? They still didn't get it. Or worse, they used your explanations against you later, twisted your words, threw them back in your face during arguments, used your vulnerability as a weapon. That's when you learned. Explanations aren't about understanding, they're about control. When someone demands you explain yourself, they're not actually trying to understand you. They're testing whether you're confident enough to stand by your choices without their approval. And the moment you start explaining, you've already lost, because you've signaled that their opinion matters more than your own conviction. Psychologically, this is called self-authorization. It's when you give yourself permission to make decisions without external validation. And people who've been burned by over-explaining develop it fast, not because they're cold, because they're done letting other people's confusion become their burden. You don't owe anyone a roadmap to your soul. If they can't respect your choices without a 20-minute TED Talk, that's their problem, not yours. Then there's the second type, the ones who realized that the people demanding explanations were never on their side to begin with. If someone truly cares about you, they don't interrogate you. They trust you. They assume you have good reasons for what you do, even if they don't fully understand. But the people who constantly ask why, who push back on every decision, who need you to justify your existence, they're not curious, they're controlling. You've seen this pattern your whole life. The family member who questions every choice you make, the friend who always has a better idea, the partner who needs you to defend your feelings before they're considered valid. These people trained you to believe that your decisions only matter if they make sense to someone else, that your boundaries only count if you can articulate them perfectly, that your needs are only real if you can prove them. But here's what you finally figured out. You don't need to prove anything. Your life is not a debate. Your choices are not up for vote. And your peace is not something you negotiate. When you stop explaining, you're not being rude. You're being clear. You're saying, I respect myself enough to make decisions without your approval. And if that makes people uncomfortable, good. Let them sit with that discomfort. Because the people who love you won't need explanations, and the people who don't love you don't deserve them. Psychologically, this is called boundary enforcement. And it's one of the hardest things to learn, because we're taught that being kind means being accommodating, that being respectful means explaining ourselves. But real kindness starts with self-respect, and real respect doesn't require you to shrink yourself to make others feel big. Now, the third type. These are the people who stopped explaining because they realized something profound. Words don't change perception. Time does. Or it doesn't. And either way, it's not your job to convince anyone of your worth. You used to think that if you just explained yourself well enough, people would finally see you. If you could just articulate your reasons clearly, they'd understand. If you could just make them see your side, they'd stop judging. So you tried. Over and over. You poured your heart out. You laid yourself bare. You gave them every detail, every nuance, every piece of context. And still, they misunderstood you. Still, they judged. Still, they made assumptions. That's when it hit you. The problem was never your explanation. The problem was their perception. And you can't control that. You can't argue someone into respecting you. You can't logic someone into seeing your value. You can't perform your way into being understood. Because people see what they want to see. And if they've decided you're wrong, no amount of explaining will change that. Psychologically, this is called letting go of the outcome. It's the ability to make choices, live with them, and release the need for everyone to agree. It's understanding that your job is to live authentically, not to be universally understood. And once you accept that, something magical happens. You stop wasting energy on people who were never going to get it. You stop tailoring your truth to fit their comfort. You stop betraying yourself for the illusion of acceptance. And finally, the fourth type, the ones who stopped explaining because they realized the most powerful response is simply living well. No defense, no justification, just results, just peace. Just a life so aligned with who they are that other people's confusion becomes irrelevant noise. These people don't argue, they don't defend, they don't perform, they just live. And their life speaks louder than any explanation ever could. They don't tell people why they made a certain choice. They show them by thriving because of it. They don't justify their boundaries. They just enforce them calmly and consistently. They don't prove their worth. They embody it. Psychologically, this is called integrated authenticity. It's when your actions and your values are so aligned that you do not need to narrate your life. You just live it, and people either respect it or they don't. But their opinion doesn't change your trajectory, because you're not performing for an audience anymore. You're living for yourself. This type understands something most people never will. Silence is not weakness. It's power. Refusing to explain is not arrogance. It's self-respect. And living without the need for approval is not loneliness. It's freedom. So if you've stopped explaining yourself, you're not being difficult. You're being mature. You're not shutting people out. You're protecting your energy. You're not being cold. You're being clear. Because the truth is, people who matter don't need explanations. And people who need explanations don't matter. You've spent enough years justifying your existence. It's time to just exist. Unapologetically, undefended, unexplained. Because your life is not a court case. You're not on trial. And you don't need to convince anyone that you deserve to take up space. Now tell me, which type are you? The one who got burned by over-explaining? The one who saw through the control? The one who let go of the outcome? Or the one who just lives and lets their life do the talking? Drop a comment. I want to know your story. And if this video gave you permission to stop explaining yourself, share it. Send it to someone who's still stuck in that cycle of justifying every choice. Because sometimes we need to hear that it's okay to just be. Without the performance, without the defense, without the explanation. Subscribe if you're ready for more psychology that tells you the truth. You don't owe anyone your story. You don't owe anyone your reasons. You don't owe anyone access to your inner world. What you owe yourself is peace. And peace starts the moment you stop explaining and start living.